Something was missing. The world was still standing. The rivers still ran. The mountains still watched from the horizon. But the great chorus of voices that once filled this land had gone silent. Somewhere beneath a sky that no longer knew the sun, a creature was still moving. The sun had not shown its face in weeks. Perhaps longer. Time itself had become difficult to measure. The sky had changed. Light arrived weak and late, filtered through a veil of gray that never lifted. The air carried a smell it had never carried before. Smoke, dust, absence. The forests that had sheltered countless generations now stood as monuments. Monuments to everything that had already gone. Even the rivers had changed. The water ran gray. The fish were gone. The banks that once drew hundreds of animals now drew only silence. And still, something inside the creature kept moving it forward. Because survival means moving. And because somewhere ahead, there might still be someone. It stopped often to listen. The instinct was ancient, older than memory. Listen for the herd. Listen for movement. Listen for life. But the answer was always the same. Finding food had become a different kind of task. Each day demanded more effort. Each meal returned less energy. The plants that remained were barely alive. The ash blocked the light. The cold slowed everything. The world's green was slowly turning gray. It was as if the world itself was slowly withdrawing the gift of life, one resource at a time. Water was still findable, but barely. And with each passing day, the pools grew shallower, the streams grew quieter, the world was slowly draining. This place had once been full of sound, of life beginning. Thousands of new generations had started here. The future had seemed guaranteed. These shells had held the future. Each one a promise. Every single one of those promises had now gone unanswered. Now only the shapes remained, impressions in the earth where something had once existed. From above, the emptiness was even harder to comprehend. So many nests, so many lives that should have been, an entire generation that never got the chance to begin. Its instinct understood something its mind could not. Something was deeply wrong, not in one place, not in one valley. It waited, as if something might still answer, as if the silence might break. It did not, everywhere. The absence followed it wherever it went. The wind moved where life once did. It was not the same thing, but it was all that was left to fill the silence. And then, for the first time in a very long while, a sign. Marks in the earth. Proof that something had passed through. Recently. A scent. Faint, but unmistakably real. Another animal had been here. Perhaps hours ago, perhaps less. It didn't matter how long ago. It was enough to bring the hope back. It followed. For the first time in a very long while, purpose, a direction, a reason to move faster than survival strictly required. How many others had there been? How many had searched and stopped and become part of the silence? There was no way to know. There was no one left to count. Darkness came earlier now. The cold stayed longer. Even the stars seemed to have retreated behind the gray veil covering the sky. The fires that had once terrified every living creature now offered the only warmth left in the world, and even they were going out. It rested, not because it fell, slowly writing the world into stone. Every era comes to an end, not always with violence, not always with thunder. Sometimes a world disappears in silence, one survivor at a time, one unanswered call at a time, until only the echo remains of what once existed. And somewhere beneath a darkened sky, the last dinosaur finally stopped searching. There was no battle, no predator, no dramatic final moment, just rest. After crossing a world that had forgotten how to live, it looked back once at everything it had crossed, every valley searched, every trail followed, every moment of hope that had not become what it promised. The silence that had followed it for so long finally caught up, and there was nothing left to search for. The ash kept falling, as it had for weeks, as it would for months more, slowly covering everything that had existed. Perhaps for the first time it called out, not to warn, not to challenge, just to be heard, to know that something somewhere could hear it. Without knowing it, it had spent its final days searching for a species that no longer existed. Nothing returned the call, not an echo, not a movement, not a shadow. The valley held the silence the way the earth holds stone, completely and without apology. Every step, every effort, every moment of hope, part of an impossible search. Because there was no one left to answer. It moved through the valley floor slowly, searching every corner with its eyes, listening at every step. The valley offered only more silence, but larger. Nothing answered. Not from the mountains, not from the plains, not from the horizon. Only silence, again and again. But because it needed to continue, perhaps dawn would bring answers. But mornings had stopped bringing them. Dawn came without color, without warmth. The world did not reset. It simply continued its slow, quiet diminishing.